Hey, welcome back. All right, now that we are done with the basic stuff, let's go into a little bit more complex stuff here. Okay, so now what we want to do is create what is known as a controller. Now, in the system here, because we know that Laravel works with the MVC format. Okay, so MVC, as I had mentioned earlier, stands for Model View Controller. So controllers are part of this. So if we go to App here, let's go to Application, HTTP folder. You see there's a folder for controllers here. Okay, and there's a controller right there. This is the main controller that we're going to be extending in all our controllers. Now, the question obviously is, why do you need a controller? Well, the thing is this. Let's say, for example, on the page that you are loading here, let's imagine this is a user's profile, right? And then in the link there's a profile ID of some kind. So what should happen here is that we're supposed to read from the database the information according to the URL. So we get that user's profile and then we display their information. So there's a lot of information to display on a profile. The user's name, the posts they've been posting, etc, etc. Now, in order for us to access all that, we need a controller. Otherwise, if we don't have a controller, we're going to have to do all that right here or right here, since this is the user section. The same way we're doing things there, where we're creating an array and then sending those array details over here. This is not good practice at all, because it can be done right here. Anything can be done anywhere, but the problem is we have to maintain that MVC system where we separate the functionalities according to the file type that we are looking at. So in here we want to keep it strictly for routing only, because this is supposed to be the routing file. Okay, so I'm going to remove all these things here because they are not doing us any good at all. So all this calculation, creating of arrays, collecting of data should occur in the controller. The controller should be the one to assign such things. So in order to create a controller, this is where we get into something called artisan. So if you look down here in the main folder, you see this file called artisan. All right, so artisan here is a helper file, so to say. It helps you to do things. For example, if you want to create a controller, you can use artisan. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it without using artisan. You can, but it's just easier when you use this file. So let's see exactly how to use the artisan file. Okay, so in order to use it, you have to load the command line. So let's do cmd here, command line, and there we go. I have a nice command line here. Okay, now remember the first time I told you, at the beginning I told you that you can run PHP files from the command line. So this is exactly what we are trying to do here. We are trying to run a PHP script, and the script we are running is this same file called artisan. So this artisan file is what we want to run here. So we're supposed to do something like PHP and then say artisan like this, and then that will run the file. Okay, now the problem is the folder we are in right now does not contain that artisan file. So in order for us to run it, we have to be in exactly the same folder that it exists in. So we have to navigate to this folder that contains our project. Otherwise, this will fail, because if I try to enter here, it's just going to tell me artisan could not open the file artisan, as you can see there. So let me clear the screen here, CLS, and then let me just change the directory one step back by doing cd change directory ... cd ... again, and then this time I want to go into my XAMPP folder. Okay, and then cd again, htdocs. So I'm simply trying to navigate to where we have our project. Now, if I look at the top here, Sublime Text is kind enough to show me where I actually am. So I'm in C, XAMPP, htdocs, my blog, and then there's Artisan in there. So let's change directory to my blog again. And now if I do dir like that, directory, it's going to show me all the files in this directory. And as you can see, there's Artisan right there. That's the one we want. Okay, so let me clear the screen one more time. And then this time I'm going to run Artisan. I'll say PHP Artisan. So once I hit enter here, it's going to run Artisan, but because I haven't given it any parameters to go with, it's just going to load everything that exists in Artisan as a help file. So this is what you do when you don't know what command to run. Just say PHP Artisan. So here it's showing me options, right? If I type Artisan there and then do a -h, -q, -v, then it's going to do display the version, or this is the help file. So what we're looking at in particular here is this section that has the make. So you see there's make channel, make command, make controller right there. That's the one we're looking for. So we want this make controller. What does it do? Create a new controller class. And that's exactly what we want to do. So in our project, we're going to be using this one, make controller, and eventually we're going to use this one, make middleware and make migration. These are, anyway, we're going to use quite a lot of this. So for now, we want to use make controller. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say PHP Artisan make :, and then I'm going to say controller like that. Now I want to tell it what the controller name is going to be. So in our case, I just want the controller name to be user. So I'll use a capital U there and then just name it controller so I don't mistake it for another file. So I'm saying Artisan make controller and then the name of the controller at the end, which is user controller here. Now I want you to notice something here. If we go to our controller files, so inside controller folder here, you see that there's just this one file, controller.php, which is the main one. There's no other file in there. But now if we run, let's press enter. Okay, so it says controller created successfully. So let's come back here and check. And you're going to notice that there's a new file in here, which is the user controller.php. So if you're not going to use Artisan here, the next time you can simply right click inside controllers, make a new file, and then copy all these things here from this other controller, provided they're still like this, and then you can paste them in another controller. That's if you don't want to use Artisan like this, but I would advise you to get in the habit of using this. And then you would have to change, obviously, the class name, and everything else remains the same. Now, another thing I want you to notice is this use Illuminate HTTP request. Okay, so this is a class that it's using. So where exactly is this class, this Illuminate? Because it's important to understand it. So if you go down to the folder named vendor here, this is where all the extra classes are stored. So if I click down here on vendor and then I go to the vendor I'm looking for is Laravel itself. So let me search here for a bit. There we go. So there's Laravel here. And then if you open up these, yours might be like that. So if you go to framework and then you go to source, you'll find the Illuminate folder. And then inside here, you see there's HTTP, right? So which means in this folder, and then there's request there. So HTTP and then request.php right there. So we are telling it to use this particular file right here. because it contains some goodies that we may need. So once you see that Illuminate HTTP namespace, then you know it's talking about this folder down here. You may never need to open this folder, but just be aware that this is where all that stuff is coming from. All right, so where were we? Let me go back here for a second to our user controller, and there it is. So what I want us to do is simply to create a function here, because every class requires at least one function. So I'm going to create a function. You can call it public, that's entirely up to you. Public function. And what will I call this function? You can give it any name you want, really, but I'm just going to name it the index because it's the first one, but you don't have to do that. You can give it any name you want. So there we go, index right there. And then in here, all I want to do is simply echo this is from the controller. That's it. Okay, so let's say the reason I'm echoing here is because I want us to know when this is being used. Okay, so now we have a controller here. So now the thing we need to do in order to activate this controller is to go to the routes and tell our route that instead of simply routing this to the view, let's use a controller instead. So when we type user, for example, I want to leave these ones as they are, but then when we enter the user thing, I want us to use a controller instead of returning just a view like that. Okay. So now what I want to do is create a route for this. So I'm going to say route like that, get, okay, and then user like that. That's for our user. I think I don't even need to put the slash here, but I'll leave it there. And then now, instead of putting the function there, I'm going to put an array. So those brackets mean it's an array, right? So inside the array, the first parameter I want to give is the controller itself. Okay, the controller that I want to use. So the controller I will use is the user controller, and then I'll put 2 full colons like that, and then put the word class to tell it that this is the class that I'm dealing with, and then a comma, and then I'll put single quotes there, and in there you can actually use double quotes, that's up to you. I'll put the function that I want to run when somebody clicks user. So this function is the one inside the user controller that I'm activating. So I can have many functions in here, but I only have one currently, so it's called index. So I'm just going to use that. So here I'll tell it, please use the index controller there. Okay, so let's see if that actually works. So let's type user at the end there. All right, and as you can see, it's not working. So why exactly isn't it working? Well, the thing is, we have to tell it to use our class here. And how do we do that? We do it exactly the way it does. Let's say we go to the controller here, you see this thing, use, and then every time we want to use a specific class, we have to use that use thingy there. So what I will do here is right here, it can be anywhere before any of this stuff. You can put it here, you can put it there. Yes. All right, so what I'm going to say is use, and then I want to find where my controller is. It's right here, and my path is going to be relative to up, so that up folder right there. So I'm going to say up, and then inside up, oh wait a minute, do they use forward or backslashes? Okay, they use backslashes, so that's what I should do right there as well. And then I would say controllers like that. and then I will say user controller, like that. Okay, semicolon. But this should be a capital C. I'm not sure if this should be a capital A, but why not? So let's try that for a second. Okay, still nothing. So why didn't it work? So hopefully you've noticed the error, and the error is right here. Because for me to get to user controller, I have to go from app, which is there, to controllers, and to from app to HTTP, and then controllers, and then user controller. So from here we go to HTTP, like that. Okay, so let me come back here. Let's try it again. Still nothing. All right, so the final reason why it's not working is because there's another route here that is obstructing this one. So what we're gonna do is let's mute this one for a second. Let's go to edit, comment, and toggle block comment. That way we comment it out. It's not working, so only this one is firing this time. Okay, so now let's try and go to the user side. Okay, so then you see this now. This is from the controller. Okay, so now we're heading to the controller instead of going to the view. Now if I click here and copy that, okay, and then I go to the controller now, right in here, I can add return view, and let me refresh, and now you see that this is from the controller, and then the view itself loads as well. So instead of us loading the view from here, we remove this. Let me just delete this in case it's confusing you. So instead of loading our view from here, we just send the request to a controller, and then from the controller, that's where we do our return view instead of doing it from here. Okay, so hopefully that was clear. That's how we get to a controller like this one. Then in here now we can type in anything we want. We can read from the database, we can evaluate some data, etc, etc. Then after doing all that, we can then return the view that we want. So here I can return any view. I can return the welcome view if I want to. So if I come back here and refresh, you see now this is from the controller, but then the view is down here, the welcome view, even though this is not the welcome page. That's because that's what I told it here. So let me just undo that for a second. Okay, so this is the beauty of controllers. So now we can start doing some cool stuff here inside the controller. So let's recap a little bit on what we've done here. So the first thing we have done is we went to the web routes here, and then we told it to use this this class right here. Now if you notice this app capital A here, that's because we're using that namespace here inside the controllers. Okay, so this is the namespace we're using. So you go app HTTP controllers and then user controller. So for every user controller you add, depending on how many routes you have here, you have to add them here at the top. So you can have a long list like this of controllers that are different. The only part that will change is the name of the class itself, but the rest of it will remain like this. Oops, went too far there. All right, so once you add the controller to the list, then now you can use it in here. Instead of returning a view, you add an array instead, where you supply the name of the class, which is this one right here, the name of the class you created, and then full colon class there. This will always be class like this. The only thing that will change is the class name itself. and then here you give it the function name that you want it to activate at that time. In our case, it's index. Alright, then once you're done there, inside the controller you can return the view that you want. Okay, so hopefully that is understood. I will see you in the next video.